Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen. Helping me to sort out Friday's newspapers, we have Meat Feast, Louis Schaefer, and Sloppy Giuseppe, Paul Cox. Don't judge. You've never shared a workplace toilet with him. How you both doing? All good?
What is a sloppy Giuseppe?
It's another type of pizza.
Oh, okay.
Which I had to search for online when I thought of calling you a meat feast, which makes...
Oh, a meat feast is a pizza. That's some disinformation.
Oh, just because you eat that much meat, it's not like I don't even know what pizza is anymore.
No, but I would never have. I would just eat the top of the pizza. I wouldn't eat the base of the pizza.
Yeah, at some point, you definitely would have eaten a pizza, wouldn't you?
I've never had a meat feast pizza, and
never lived.
No, because that's the young kids are having that. I'm just old school. We had.
Do you like a sloppy Giuseppe?
If you're offering, Steve, I'll take it.
We all know which restaurant we're talking about. I went to one in Woking once, but anyway, different story.
Didn't sweat.
Although I do it here. Right, that's we're all up to date. Let's move on to the front pages. To the Daily Mail. Unelected lords plot to block Rwanda law that could end in scenes like this, as you can see on their front page. The Telegraph says, Braverman, my plan to get Rwanda flights off the ground. More on that later. To The Guardian, senior female staff report sexual assault and harassment at MOD. The Eye goes with new benefits crackdown if jobless don't accept work. The Times says, look for a job or lose free NHS medicines. And The Sun, it's PC gone mad. Those are your front pages. Well, kicking things off with the Daily Mail, Lewis.
Good news in the Daily Mail. Oh, not really. I mean, it's the same. It's like this, like Groundhog Day in this country with new Groundhog Day. It's like a guy's living through two Groundhog Days. This is the old Groundhog Day. Unelected lords plot Rwanda law that could end scenes like these. And here are the scenes, which is people in boats.
There's also a really big picture behind you, Louis.
Yeah.
I didn't realise.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know. I don't know how television works.
Looks like a working class family holiday.
First time on TV. Anyway, it's the House of Lords. I don't understand how I do understand how the House of Lords works. It's basically it's a break on the commoners, but it's been. Power has been taken away. It can delay situations, can it not? But it can't
that's true. Can't ultimately stop it. Yeah, and there's an argument about whoever's in government can kind of pad it. There are more people who can sit in that house than could physically fit in that house because they keep just going, oh, let's have a peerage. Go in there and do this for the rest of the
could they block people who would vote against them? They can't, like, have people out at the door saying, no, you can't come in because you're going to vote against us. So
that's true. Half of them just turn up just to clock in and take the money and go home. So it's not...
Yeah. Well, it's something to do. That's why I'm here. I come to clock in to take...
But anyway, we should get back to the story. What it's actually saying?
The story, as far as I can tell, is that people are coming, and there are. It's about Rwanda, which is this plan that they have to ship. It's based on an Israeli plan that the Israelis actually had shipped people to Rwanda.
How are things going over there?
It's not going well. Oh my God, he's on fire tonight. And the idea is we capture people as they land in this country and take them to Rwanda. And it's so uncomfortable in Rwanda, they want to go anywhere but Rwanda.
But isn't that the problem? That this scheme isn't meant to be you're punished by the third-party country. It's meant to be a more efficient way of processing. It's not meant to be the punishment of, look, where you'll have to wait.
No, I think it is supposed to put people off to some degree. Not because it's Rwanda or whatever a third-party country is. I think there is a lot of value in third-party. We've no idea if it works or not because we've not implemented it, and it looks very unlikely at this moment in time. It is a deterrent in the sense you are coming to the UK for very specific reasons. You're coming because it's a nice place to live, irrespective of what we're told. We're looked after considerably well. There's a lot of socialism for a conservative country. You know, we've got the NHS, we've got the benefit system, and if you know how to exploit it, then it's a great place to live.
Obviously, and this is the thing. When I first moved to this country 23 years ago, people who came to this country were called asylum seekers back then. And then they realized, because they thought the only reason people want to live in this country, because British people have such a bad self-image, they think, oh, it must be horrible where they're from in order to want to live in England, or Britain, excuse me. Now it's morphed back into asylum seekers because they have to pretend that. The end of the day, when all the chickens have been plucked, There are ways of handling this, that a real nation with a will to live and a will to power, to quote Nietzsche.
That sounded so confusing. I think you are outing yourself as a spy to me, and I meant to repeat something about swallowing.
I'm not from this. I'm not from this country.
When all the chickens have been plucked.
Well, that's my new phrase.
Totally irrelevant to the story.
I know, but I'm trying to say.
What I would say, listen, I don't want to stop you talking because it's my favourite thing to listen genuinely to you talk.
I don't believe you. Well,
no, I do.
Genuinely.
I find it very amusing in many ways.
In many ways.
It's not about who comes in, although I think people should add value to a society wherever they come from. It's about the number you can... what we've got is a societal framework in which we can work, OK, that supports everybody within that society. Now, that's got a finite number on it, and we've exceeded it.
No, I disagree with that. At the end of the day, when the chickens have all been plucked, it's not about how many people can fit on the island, because it's a fungible thing.
No, it's not about the capacity. It's about the framework in which it operates. The NHS, let's say the NHS, for argument's sake, can only handle 1 million people a year. It can't, much more than that.
Yeah.
Let's say, for argument's sake, if you put 1.5 million in there, you're 50% over capacity.
You know what? That's one reason, but that's not the best reason. The best reason is its lawlessness, is that this country has lost control of itself. And a country that does not have control over its borders doesn't deserve to be considered a country.
We didn't even deploy the full control we had over borders when we were in the EU. So
yeah.
Something worth bearing in mind. To the Guardian, Paul. What's on the front page?
Yes, senior female staff report sexual assault and harassment at Ministry of Defence. So this is 60 senior women, by which I believe they mean rank rather than their age, although it's not 100% clear in here. 60 senior women at the UK's Ministry of Defence have described a hostile and toxic culture at the department in a letter that alleges sexual assault, harassment and abuse by male colleagues. It goes on to list a few things here, which I think is important context. A woman said she was groped an MOD social function, but was advised against complaining. A woman on an overseas posting who said she was touched repeatedly on the lower back and legs by a senior military officer, but the perpetrator went unpunished. And it gets slightly more sinister as the article goes on. So I don't think this is unsurprising. One thing I will say with the ministry, we're dealing with cultural things here. So I don't want, but by the way, I don't want to undermine this. I don't want to justify any of these things in any way. The floodgates are fully open now. So we're in a position where I'd imagine these women will definitely be listened to, and the men involved are in a lot of trouble. However, if we take the environment of Ministry of Defence, this is it has been previously a very male-dominated environment with all its toxicity just being a natural part of the culture. So you either accept that a place in which people are taught to fight and survive is masculine, and therefore accept some of the things that come with that, or you go down this road and you accept that we need to demasculine the whole process.
Yeah. Before, I got something to say on that, but I do want to ask Lewis, how long did you work at the MOD?
That I worked at the MOD.
Sounds like.
No, I'm about to take the other side, which is it's ridiculous with these women. These are top women, and they're spoken over at meetings. We are subject to pejorative language. We received unwanted attention and face sexual harassment. I mean, if I were a woman, and sometimes I lie in bed at night and I feel...
When all of your chickens have been plucked.
When all the chickens have been plucked, my legs have been shaved, I feel attracted. I mean, if I were a woman, I'd be embarrassed, especially one in the military. And the thing is, I know some super tough women. They don't... If someone touches their leg once, woe on the person who touched their leg.
You can't victim blame here. I mean,
They're not victim. I'm not victim blaming them because they're not victims. They're not victims. They're people who have said, somebody touched my leg, and then he touched it again, and then he touched it again, and then he touched it again, and then he touched it again. Is that that's what the article said?
Yeah, but I think Steve's going to add some context, which I think is going to be welcome, because I have so far said, because this is in the military, hey, come on, it's the boys being boys. And I think there is a good counter to that.
I think the masculinity that is brought to these situations that fight wars, that protect nations, isn't the same as, I have a little touch of that. And you can separate the two, and you should be able to separate the two.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong to say, you've got to allow a little bit of groping, because that's what men are like if they're fighting wars. You can do one, not the other.
This is the exact same story as as the countries refusing to stop the boats from coming. It's the exact same story. It's the lack of masculinity. It's a totally feminine. I'm speaking as not much of a man, but it's a totally feminized country. We need to stop this stuff.
Well, perhaps that could be a good thing.
Lewis proving that toxicity isn't necessarily always masculine. What about Friday's Telegraph? What are they leading with, Lewis?
They're leading with, where are we here? They're leading with the same story, which is Braverman, my plan to get Rwanda flights off the ground. And I did read the article. I did read what Suella Braverman, who I'm somewhat of a fan of, but I couldn't figure out what her plan was. Basically,
to make Rishi look stupid?
Yeah, to make him look. No, just to make herself keep relevant. She got fired from a job. You don't want to be. Nobody wants to be known as someone who got fired from a job.
I did enjoy a letter when she was fired, which listed all of the good reasons why she did the honourable thing and resigned. Wait a minute. Nope. Stayed there with all of that.
It was one heck of a letter, wasn't it? I mean, in the article here, it says the first article since being sacked, of course, Suella here, the former Home Secretary attacks the Prime Minister's approach and sets out her own 5-point plan to end the deadlock over deportation flights to Rwanda. It doesn't say what the 5 points are. I have read that.
Am I right? It didn't say what they were.
No, it didn't say that, Lewis. However, it does say that, of course, having been in that role for the last 12 months, she knows that Plan B doesn't work as well. It can't work because even if we were to get through UK-British law, that was changed or whatever, we'd still have to go to Strasbourg and there'd still be a problem there. So the idea that she's probably going to come up with is that we need to remove all association with the human rights.
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick hit at the other story on the front page?
Yeah, it's PC gone mad. That's not Paul Cox. That is political correctness. So this is a story about a fury as police force warns that using the word policeman could be breaking the law. Now, of course, this is designed to outrage gammons like myself. It's not strictly true. They're trying to basically gender neutralise the language. There are some very amusing things as a result, though. You and I were talking about this just a moment ago. Cops were told also that they must avoid phrases like man up and grow a pair. And as you said, Steve, it's not only men that can grow a pair. Women
have pairs too. It's just different pairs of things, isn't it? Lots of things in the human body come in pairs.
This is just further to all the stuff that we've seen in the last couple of years in terms of language being changed to make other people feel comfortable. The thing that always worries me about this is the thing they're trying to avoid the most is causing offence, and we've made offence sort of a legal issue.
Made offence an offence.
Yeah, which I think's a dangerous ground.
But there's nothing about the main story, which is there's a war going on. There's a war between the left and the right, between Team World and Team Britain, but there's also a major religious war going on in our own country that we can ignore, and we're basically ignoring it out. That's not comedy.
I'm sure it'll get mentioned. I'm sure it'll come up again. That's it for part one, but on the way we have bad news for the work shy. Bad news? Well, we normally give them a spot on the panel. We'll see you shortly.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GBNews.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GBNews,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen. I'm still here with the two people who, when they aren't on TV, they're reenacting that scene from Officer and a Gentleman. It's Lewis Schaefer and Paul Cox.
Thank you, Steve.
I intro the story.
Oh, sorry.
He heard his name and he was like a greyhound out of the traps. The Telegraph, Lewis. Not yet. And it's bad news for my dream of getting one of those friends with benefit deals.
Yes, well, I could be a friend with benefits. Unemployed who refuse jobs will lose their benefits, says Jeremy Hunt. Is this the biggest non-story ever? I thought there were rules about that. If you don't do what they want you to do, you lose your benefits. And so Jeremy Hunt, who's the Chancellor, right? He says...
Not real.
Well, who knows what these people... You know what? These people have so little power. You know, the Prime Minister...
I'd argue that sometimes they have too much.
I don't know. I don't think that they do. So he's saying if you have benefits and you don't get a job in 18 months and we ask you to get a job, your benefits are going to be cut. Like, that's something that's new in every country in the world. Even when I was on benefits in all those countries, the 2 countries that
Lewis's benefits tour.
Get a couple of email addresses.
I actually met a girlfriend when I was online at the unemployment office in New York. There's the Dole office in New York. And so we went out for a while, and then she dumped me because she said I didn't have a job.
Cruel, just cruel.
Do you come here often?
Yeah.
So maybe, Paul, the story is this. Yeah, those rules have always been in place. There's nothing more than tweaking, but it's showing that the current Conservative Party is trying to show strength, even if it's not actually using strength.
Yeah. You know, in terms of their leadership, we're at like 5 minutes to midnight, aren't we? So this type of it might as well be me making this policy at this point, because within 12 months, we're likely to have a different government, most likely to be Labour. Labour are going to scrap anything like this anyway. Labour are essentially a socialist government. They're probably going to look at the welfare reform of their own, and it won't include things that the Tories said 12 months ago. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. OK, look... we could argue till the cows come home or till the chickens have been plucked about this type of stuff. The best thing to do is to get people back into work for a whole number of reasons, not just for the economy, but for their own well-being, for their mental health, for the greater good of a societal community. So I'd like to see people incentivised back into work, because if you can stay on benefits and it be a lot easier for you than being at work, then why would you give it up?
Yeah, I mean, I know there is an answer about a sense of purpose and
for me there is.
Health. Yeah, but what about this? If you bring this plan in and it shows look how tough we are. We've been trying to deal with people. Here's another group we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who aren't going to go and get a job. So you cut off all their benefits. Who then has to pay for all of the additional care that's then needed The taxpayer, just through a different route.
No. Things get done. We live in a masculine world. Not me, I can't do this. But we live in a masculine world. We say, okay, you're not working. We're putting you in jail. And then
jails aren't paid for by taxpayers.
And then if they're in jail and that doesn't work, we beat them with a stick.
We have to pay for.
And then if it doesn't, we kill them. Then we death penalty.
For being jobless.
Yeah.
You see how quickly it happens?
Yeah.
You see how that was barely even a paragraph's worth of going from reading one of these newspapers to saying kill the jobless.
You know what?
I'm
on GBNews. I didn't think it affected me. But
it is in the water when you drink it. The Sun, Paul, and the police say that they're sorry, but in their defence, they did nothing. Oh, no, sorry, that's what they did wrong.
Yes, police regret response after cops stood by and watched while pro-Palestine protesters climbed on the war memorial. So this was yesterday. Most of our viewers would have seen this many times. So the footage has emerged showing protesters scaling the Royal Artillery Memorial, which is on Hyde Park Corner, and activists were seen waving Palestinian flags and chanting things like Free Palestine and Ceasefire Now. Now, I've got a view on this, but the first thing I'd like to say, and I haven't said this today on Twitter or anywhere else, is that I don't blame the beat officers in this particular position. I'll tell you for why. Because they're the first people to get the blame. And I saw the guy look like one of those volunteer police officers as well. We have had, quote-unquote, woke policing and woke policing policy indoctrinated over the last 10 years. And I think it's left people like that beat officer there very unsure of what he should do in that situation. If you were to play the sound on that, you would hear some pro-Palestine people saying, look, come down, this is disrespectful. So I think that's a worthy piece of balance. However, the whole thing was abhorrent, really. I'm not sure the police could have done anything. If he had kicked off and pulled them down, or one had fallen, he could have been attacked by them, anything could have happened. There needs to be reform, and the fact that it doesn't break the law doesn't surprise me either. But let me tell you something. If I scaled a mosque in my Union Jack pyjamas tomorrow, they'd either find a law or they'd change the law to get me in trouble, I think.
And, Lewis, that headline's a bit disingenuous, isn't it? Because in the actual story, the police regret not stopping the protesters getting there rather than doing nothing, which is standing by and doing nothing. And actually, they didn't stand by and do nothing. They got people down from there. They just didn't arrest them. So people are angry that they weren't arrested, but the police weren't inactive at that moment.
Well, they need to be, as we would call it, proactive. People need to be punished.
Death penalty?
Genocide.
Record time. Look at that one. We clocked that within 30 seconds. We're going on that.
Well, it's a Mexican standoff, you know. It's like the police don't want to get involved, and
But how would you? The thing is, though, in that situation, what is the opposite that should be done? Should that guy have arrested? He couldn't arrest, and there wasn't a law broken. What should he have done? Because I've been thinking about this all day. I was very angry about it. I thought something should have been done, but I don't know what.
There is a law that's broken, disturbing the peace. Putting yourself in a reckless position. Yeah. There's tons.
People on Twitter have had like a Section 5 of some law, Section 50 of some one. They found laws that could have been used. So it's not that we necessarily need another law being brought in. They just need guidance on how to use the laws we've got. Because if you rush to bring in a new law, then all of a sudden that new law will cover other things that don't want the police being able to do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's the whole country is like this. Every single story shows a lack of will amongst the people, not even the political leaders, the people. The people have lost control of this country. You're in a state of maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm pessimistic, and doomsday, but it seems like the people have lost their will to control.
What do we do about it? Death penalty? OK. No. To the Daily Mail, Lewis, and an SNP minister got caught by roaming charges. Bad news, because if you get the independence you're after, that roaming charge is going to start as soon as you nip to Carlisle.
Yeah, well, death penalty for this guy. Anyway, a tearful SNP minister blames teenage sons, and I used to have teenage sons just a couple of years ago, for racking up £11,000 iPad roaming charges. And they said that they were watching football matches during Moroccan holiday. I was like in shock too. I thought to myself, are there still roaming charges? I don't leave the country. I don't like to leave the country. I'm afraid they're not going to let me back in. Please let me back in. I love this country. And so it's this minister, Michael Matheson. He's the health secretary. First he lied and he said, maybe he didn't lie, but he said, I didn't do it. Maybe his sons didn't tell him that he was on the thing. But his sons basically watched 2 or 3 football matches. 11,000. This is Morocco.
When you look through the whole story, it's less than 4 gigabytes as well. Yeah. Ouch. I mean, that's not the point here, but wow, that much money for like 4 gigabytes.
Yeah, on the internet, the Chinese internet, that's about 30 seconds worth of download.
Yeah, wowzers. But isn't the issue, it's not necessarily that he lied, it's that he's letting people in his family get access to what I imagine is relatively important documentation on an iPad?
Yeah, well, he is the health secretary. Let's face it, Scottish people are not very healthy. So.
Paul, what's your take on this?
The whole thing feels like one great big lie to me. I don't even believe the 4 gigabytes thing. I know it's written in here. I know that's what we're told. I would investigate that as well. I would say, how on earth can 4 gigabytes of data cost 11,000 quid? But that's a very much a side issue on this. The guy could have avoided all of this by being honest up front. Yeah. Now, we've all told a few porkies, but putting an £11,000 expense claim for watching 2 football matches is a massive porky. Now, he must have felt comfortable to do that. I'm not quite sure how this story came about. I don't know if there was a Freedom of Information Act. I don't know how it got leaked, is what I mean. Because he must have felt comfortable to put this on. Because let's not forget that this hasn't come out until somebody else has challenged it, i.e., I think the Tory Scottish leader challenging it. Forget the guy's name now all of a sudden. So it's been found out. And this could have all been avoided very easily. But it was obviously an environment in which he felt he would get away with it. That's what worries me more than anything.
Should have blamed on tractor porn.
Tractor porn.
Yeah.
One of our favourites.
The Telegraph, Paul, and Lisa Nandy doesn't want to hear about bodily parts, so she won't enjoy my podcast. But anyway.
Yeah. Welcome to Bodily Parts with Stephen Allen. Don't reduce trans debate to bodily parts, Nandy tells J.K. Rowling. I don't think this was in a conversation anywhere in particular. So Labour Minister says society will be utterly ashamed in the future for the way transgender women are currently being treated. I think that's up for debate too. To add a little bit more context here, she was asked in an interview recently about Rowling's remarks about whether women voters can trust her party at the next election, based on what Nandy had said herself about the transgender issues. Now, of course, we need to include body parts in this. I hate to always boil these things down, but at the end of the day, the thing that differentiates women and men physically is their body parts. So we have to be able to... If we are going to deny biology and science, and I'll come to you in a minute as our science correspondent, Stephen, but if we are going to deny science, then anything's up for grabs, isn't it? So we have to take it back to fundamental basics, I think, and genitalia is a good place to start.
You can certainly have your genitals operated on. So
you can.
In your definition of how you've just described the situation, post-operative, is the same as being a woman.
You could cover
just talked about body parts.
A Vauxhall Corsa engine in a Ferrari chassis. You've still got a Vauxhall Corsa engine. So I think the whole point of my ridiculous analogy, which is even more ridiculous than plucking chickens, is that the point that J.K. Rowling has made all along is that there are such things as biological women and it shouldn't be denied. And therefore, there should be safe spaces for those biological women. That's all she's really asking for. And to say that that's transphobic to me is a bit of a misnomer.
Lewis, we're all scared now.
You know, it's the same thing. What are we fighting over? What's the difference between the two sides? I mean, J.K. Rowling says that men who think that they're women should not be allowed in a prison. And
yeah, I know, but OK, sorry to interrupt as well, because I enjoy your flow as well. But isn't the actual argument men who don't think they're women but can use the loophole? They're the worrying ones.
OK,
so why don't we...
I'll say there's a million different slight differences. J.K. Rowling says men who are enjoying the loophole are a threat to women. And the other side is saying that even there might be a couple, but even if there are, it's still more hurtful for the other side. People will laugh at this. Meanwhile, we're in the midst of a global war that is coming.
I'm worried because I think we've just talked more sense than I certainly expected.
Well, my new
was that sense?
Well, we're done for part 2. Coming up, Bin Laden's getting more popular, but so are microplastics. So pick your villain. We'll find out more shortly.
Julia.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, to the Daily Mail now, Paul, and young people are fans of Bin Laden. Just because he had a beard doesn't mean he's a hipster.
Yeah, this is a worrying story, actually. It's quite fascinating, the psychology of this. So, anti-Israel Gen Zers, so people born beyond, I think, 2007, 2005, one of those, young people, 20-year-olds, send Bin Laden's 2002 letter to America viral. So, for those who don't know, Bin Laden obviously was the chief instigator, warlord, whatever you want to call him, head of Al-Qaeda and behind the plot of 9/11. And they've said here that it's become viral on TikTok with users saying that reading it has led them to an understanding why the horrific attacks were carried out in 2001. Now, you can look at this many ways, actually. There are obviously there is reasons to look at that letter to try and find out what caused that, and it's important to understand that. But to glorify it is an issue. And I think the problem the hard left often have, and people who buy into it sometimes, is that they'll take anything that's anti-American and make it the colours that they're going to nail to the mast, and that gets them into trouble quite often. And this sort of thing will get them into trouble. We're all kind of idealistic when we're young, but essentially, it's the direction of travel we're going in at the moment. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And America and the West and all of those things, imperialism, are shown as bad, and anything, absolutely anything against it is good, irrespective. And this is a case of that here.
Yeah, and let's cross now to our resident anti-American, Louis Schaefer.
I mean, there's certain things I don't like about America. I mean, if they're gonna listen to what Bin Laden says, and is that reasonable? What are they gonna bring back Hitler and say, I'm gonna read Mein Kampf because it's all there? That's a joke. I mean, obviously, it didn't get any laughs. But this is the war. The war is the left hates America. Europe. When I say Europe, I don't mean England. I mean the left of Europe, the French-German dialectic there, hates America. So that's one war that's going on. In the meantime, there are other forces that really hate America. So we're being attacked from within and from without. And when I say America, I mean Britain, because Britain is basically...
So it's a cultural and value problem as well. So what we're seeing with the pro-Palestinian marches is I don't believe they're all anti-Israel or anti-Jew, but they are, a lot of them, sort of anti this establishment figure, whatever that might be. And in this case, it's America, and this is happening within America. In our case over here, it's us or the establishment in some way. And it's been mistaken for good versus bad.
Yes, it's exactly that. It's become no nuance. But when you get to the stage where you're agreeing with Bin Laden, surely you have a moment.
Well, I don't think they do they? I don't think, and that's what worries me about this.
To The Guardian, Lewis, and Elon Musk thinks that Jewish people don't like white people.
Well,
What's he talking about you?
No, well, in a way he is, because this is a very complicated issue, and I don't think, and I'm the perfect person to explain it. Whether
does it involve plucked chickens?
In a way, it's kind of, there are kosher chickens and there are not kosher chickens. Elon Musk agrees with tweet accusing Jews of hatred against whites, which is like mental, okay? Because everybody in the world thinks that Jews are white people. When I was growing up in New York, I thought of myself as a black person. There were Jews, there were white people, and they lived across the bay in Manhasset. But Jews as a group, we were killed by Hitler because we were not white. We weren't Aryan, which meant white. And what's happened is that the ADL, which is the whatever it's called, the Defense League, whatever, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, is that a group of Anti-Defamation League some Jews are so white that they have, are so woke that they have forgotten that they are no longer black.
Paul, can you re-explain that in a way that I might get?
I mean, Lewis is making a good point there. In amongst all of that, he's essentially saying, you know, and let's not forget that. Let's take everything on balance here. No one is saying that in this argument, for instance, that all Jewish people are great, all Palestinians are bad, or vice versa. Now, some are, they're ignorant and stupid. What's happening here, however, and we know it's quite dodgy because The Guardian look like they're taking some sort of stance against anti-white racism. Of course, they're not. They're taking a stance with their narrative, which happens to be against the Jewish people at the moment. Interestingly, the story with Elon Musk is that this Defamation League have been on his back for some time and have treated him quite appallingly, according to him. And he is saying that he has seen anti-white racism against himself from these people. So that's why Lewis's point makes some sense, is that there are probably still Jewish people who see themselves as non-white. And it's interesting when Lewis says this, because right now I consider all Jewish people to be white. Lewis looks white to me. You are, aren't you?
No,
he's black. You said earlier.
Well, it depends what team. I'm fungible. I don't think that's the right word. is that at some moments I'm a white guy, and some moments I'm a black guy, and that's why this story is so amazing because people are looking at this story and saying, wait a second, Jews aren't white.
To The Telegraph.
Do you agree with me?
Later. We've honestly got to run out for time reasons, but I will also pretend I'm using that as an excuse. The Telegraph, Paul. More people are using imitation guns. Oh, prop comics.
Yeah, prop comics. Increase in use of fake guns as a result of success in restricting access to conventional and converted firearms, the National Crime Agency says. So this is in the UK, and the statistics show that offences involving imitation weapons jumped up from 13% to 2,130 in the 12 months up to March, from 1,889 in the previous year. And of the imitation firearms used in offences, 85% of them were BB, ball-bearing guns or airsoft weapons. So when I first read this, until I got to that piece of information, I thought this is a good thing because it's much more difficult to get hold of legitimate guns and make guns in some way. And I was thinking, well, of course, imitation guns can't hurt people, but they can. A BB, you know, take a BB gun to the eye or up close to an airsoft, you could probably, I'm sure, if you tried hard enough, kill somebody. So it's not necessarily a good thing, but it's a lot safer than a firearm or... No?
No, whenever a gun is pulled in a crime, they have to alert the gun squad. They can't send. So it's a major palaver for the police. The police
come in. Imitation gun squad.
No, you got to send guys with real guns. They come in, and then somebody can get proper killed, even though it's just a fake gun. The truth is, it's not that many guns. It's only like 2,500 offenses, and the shocking thing from this story is that only 28% of them were sent to prison for using a gun.
Imitation guns.
Yeah.
Should we try and fit this one in before the break? The Guardian, Lewis, and loneliness is a public health threat. Imagine the shame of being prescribed a friend on the NHS.
Yeah, well, they were thinking about that with anyway, the World Health Organization, okay, which is part of the United Nations, and it's a tool of world governance, Team World. It says that loneliness is a pressing global problem, and they're blaming COVID, and they're blaming not enough internet and the climate crisis for causing this. But let's face it, the World Health Organization and Team World, they spend their entire time promoting birth control, promoting the end of the family, preventing neighborhoods and communities, preventing nations and states, and promoting people not having children, which causes loneliness. The thing that prevents loneliness is being married. You pray for loneliness.
Paul, loneliness, does it bother you? Do you have it? I love it.
Yeah, I think it all depends, doesn't it? If loneliness is a choice, which is kind of what you're alluding to, and I believe is the crux of Lewis's joke. It's a luxury, isn't it? It's a nice to have. But perpetual loneliness, and I'm a bit sinister. I find the WHO and big global organisations like this slightly sinister.
Slightly sinister.
They've implicated a lot of loneliness on a lot of people over the last few years.
OK. Well, that's it for another part. One more to go. With selfies and dating apps, what could possibly go wrong? We'll find out soon.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. The Times now, Lewis, and selfies could be bad for your health. There will be if you do one in front of me when I'm trying to walk.
Yeah. Selfies should be deemed a public health threat, unquote, quote, after hundreds of deaths. And this is it's a fantastic story in The Times. And it says that there's a guy in Australia who did a comprehensive study and found out that in the 13 years up to 2021, that this people taking selfies at beauty spots is such a danger. It's like poses a threat comparable to driving without a seatbelt or smoking. It's that bad. But then you read how many people died from taking a selfie. 400 in 13 years. That's like 30 a year. 30 a year is comparable.
Is it harsh of me to say that the 400 people who died taking selfies were the kind of people who take selfies? So
yes,
yeah, it is harsh to point out.
It's not harsh.
Lewis Schaefer.
You're saying it's the Darwin effect or whatever that's called.
It's Darwin, isn't it?
Yeah, but why? But I'll ask you. Is that big? Is that big? 400
no,
people
they would have died
died
another way.
But even 400 people.
If you're going to value likes over life, the chances are. And it's essentially what's happening there. You're trying to get the best selfie of yourself. It's very self-indulgent. Yeah. It's all about the ego. I mean, obviously stupidity should be considered a health and safety risk as well. Yeah. And that's what's going on here. And I know these are largely young people, and it's quite sad. But 400 is not a lot. In the last 13 years, we've had a Tory government. I imagine they've killed more than 400 people. Yeah. But it's still ridiculous, isn't it? Because of the idea of taking a photograph of yourself in the nicest possible way, 4 likes is worth anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, can I just ask? Can I ask a question? Do you think that should be like a cup that you could have?
Like a
totally
value
QVC again.
Value likes over life. Value likes. Over.
While you're flogging your wares, I will say, me and the missus went on holiday once, and it was a beautiful place, like Sicily or wherever, I can't remember now, doesn't matter. But there was someone, we just saw her walk into view with her poor boyfriend having to take a ton of pictures. She had an umbrella-y thing to get the light right, and I'm sure if you ask her what the scenery looked like, you have no clue.
No idea.
Had a holiday where she didn't see any of the things, but just took loads of pictures for Instagram.
So 400 less of them, Steve.
To the Times, Paul, and meeting your wife on a dating app might be bad. I mean, it would certainly shock me. She's told me she's not doing that anymore. It's an old joke.
Wait, I wasn't listening.
No, we can't do it again. Come on, it's live, Lewis. It's live.
What do you mean? Is this live?
It's live, yeah.
You're on TV.
Why meeting on a dating app means your marriage may be less stable. So this is an interesting part of this, actually. Nearly a century ago, James Bossard observed that most married couples met while living in the same neighbourhoods, saying, Cupid may have wings, but apparently they are not adapted for long flights. So since then, the business of finding a mate has been transformed by dating apps. And the point is, they're saying it's less stable because we're meeting people from much wider outside of our geographical area. We might have less in common, etc., etc. However, the statistics of this particular poll show that actually most of the people interviewed were aged 18 to 35. So if they were married, they were only recently married. They were most likely to have used dating apps at that age anyway, because that's how you meet people now.
Yeah.
They do go on in this. They do go on in this article to say there's still some stigma around meeting people on dating apps. I can't believe that at all. I mean, I MC a lot of comedy clubs, and I talk about this thing. I'll often ask people how they met. People from all the demographic and age ranges meet on apps now. I mean, they should stop asking people if they're happily married, though, because nobody really wants to hear from happily married people for a start.
And number two, there are none.
In terms of emceeing and chatting to people at gigs, I did a gig in Sawbridgeworth, and there was a couple in the front row, and they met online, and they were asked, where did you meet? What website did you meet? And everyone's thinking, if it's Plenty of Fish, you probably don't say it. And she admitted it was Craigslist.
Craigslist?
Yeah, apparently there was a section of the website in the old days just for hookups.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that was considered racy. Now it's all hookups. The reason why they're not happy today, as opposed to in the past, it's not because of dating apps. It's because they're having relationships today, and everything is geared to breaking up because they don't want stable families. They don't want children. They want independent people because it's the death of love. And you could look on my calendar, which it says choose life, eat meat, and that's not appropriate for this. But
well, on to the Guardian, Lewis, before we sell too many. And here we go. Eating plant-based food may cut heart disease. Paul, let's go and get a coffee.
Yeah. Lewis, over to you, mate. There's absolutely no point in Steve and I being involved in this whatsoever.
No, why don't you show that you've learned something about why these stories are ridiculous?
Largely because this is your story.
Oh, is it my story?
It doesn't help focus and cognitive ability, but it might...
You know what? This is
I'm not opting out.
This is the worst show that I've ever done.
No,
I want to apologise.
Trust me, I've done loads of you. Have a read.
We all know which one was you were.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. I thought you were talking to Steve. Plant-based swaps may cut diabetes and heart disease risk. This is one of those, could, possibly, maybe. It's also it's an association study that they did out of Germany. It's an epidemiology where they look and they say, if you do one thing, if one thing happens, it's not even if you do something, is if one thing happens, does it change anything? And they say that people who change from eating processed food to eating less processed food have a 20% decrease.
Are you are you still talking about the stuff that's in the story, or just your own personal?
Yeah, this is the story. I read half the story. You can't read these stories.
Should we try and cram this one as well, Lewis? Because the Daily Mail, Lewis, and a woman who cheated on a marathon by driving has spoken out. Some think it was still an impressive time when you consider how long it took to park.
Are you asking me?
It's your story again.
No, it isn't. It's Paul's story.
The marathon woman.
Oh,
wow.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, yes, it is. Sorry, Steve.
OK, so British ultra...
No, you're right, it is your worst show.
It is my worst.
British ultramarathon cheat who was banned from the sport after using a car to skip 2.5 miles mid-race breaks her silence, saying, we all make mistakes, and didn't she just? Because
We've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah. I mean, she's an ultramarathon runner. This is like 250 miles, and she only did about 2.5 miles of them because in an Uber or whatever.
Fair enough.
And she didn't get away with it, Steve.
No. But the interesting thing is that she's a runner. And she's been banned for a year, right? But the truth is, she's been punished enough because the fact she has to run.
The price of driving these days. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Friday's front pages. The Daily Mail goes with unelected Lords plot to block Rwanda law that could end in scenes like this. The Telegraph, Braverman, my plan to get Rwanda flights off the ground. The Guardian goes with senior female staff report sexual assault and harassment at Ministry of Defence. The Eye, new benefits crackdown if jobless don't accept work. The Times goes with look for a job or lose free NHS medicines. And The Sun, it's PC gone mad. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Leo Kearse will be here tomorrow at 11 with Nicholas DeSanto and Scott Capurro going through the papers. If you're watching the 5 a.m. one, stay tuned. Breakfast on the way next. Till next time, have a good one.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels.